Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
We are rapidly approaching the anniversary of the John F. Kennedy assassination. And as we do so, we're reminded whenever this subject comes up that a whole lot of people, sometimes it's a majority, sometimes it's almost a majority, but a substantial portion of the American public believes that John F. Kennedy was killed as a result of a conspiracy. Now, why? Why would so many people, absent a smoking gun, believe that John F. Kennedy was killed as a result of an assassination? Personally, I think part of the reason is because we don't like to think that just one guy, one determined lone gunman, could take out a president. You'd like to think that it takes a little bit more than that. But secondly, the thing that added a whole layer of mystery to this is the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald, after saying that he was just a patsy, was killed on live television. Furthermore, so many of the things that the assassin of Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby, has said over the years has led people to think that there was kind of a conspiracy involved. For instance, Jack Ruby, after the shooting, was on television and he was asked about who's responsible. And he basically implied that it was Lyndon Johnson. Listen to this.
I mentioned about Adlai Stevens. If he was vice president, there would never have been an assassination of our beloved President Kennedy. Would you explain what's going? Well, the answer is the man in office now.
Says if Adlai Stevenson were vice president, this never would have happened. The answer is the man in office now, meaning Lyndon Johnson. So what's the story with Jack Ruby? We've heard so many different things over the years about his life before he killed Oswald, after, and he is at the center of so many of these different John F. Kennedy conspiracy theories. Who is he? Someone who has worked pretty hard to find the answer to that question is Danny Fingeroth. He is a veteran cultural critic, an editor, an educator, and a writer who's written several books, including Jack Ruby, The Many Faces of Oswald's Assassin. Danny, thanks so much for staying up late with us.
Okay, great to be here.
Danny, let me begin with kind of exactly what everybody knows Jack Ruby best for, which is the killing of Lee Harvey Oswald. As far as you can tell, what did your research suggest as to what motivated Jack Ruby to kill Lee Harvey Oswald?
You know, Ruby must have given 100 different answers. You had that great clip of him saying that thing that implies that Lyndon Johnson was involved. He said a dozen or 100 other things. He was constantly, as opposed to Oswald, who only lived 2 days after being arrested and charged, Ruby lived 3 years, and he would talk to anybody and everybody, including at impromptu news conferences, at recesses in his circus trial. He said that he did it so Jackie Kennedy wouldn't have to, and Caroline wouldn't have to come back to Dallas for Oswald's trial. He said he did it because he wanted to show that Jews had guts, and he thought he was doing public relations for the Jewish people. He said he did it because he didn't like the smirk on Oswald's face. On and on and on. The guy would tell 10 different stories to 10 different people on the same day.
You spent a lot of time analyzing his early life, or at least his pre-Oswald killing life. Tell us about what Jack Ruby was like as a young person. I know that he had this nickname Sparky, which apparently he just hated. What do we know about Ruby's childhood?
He was the child of a certifiably insane mother and a father with a lightning temper and very violent. Grew up in in the Maxwell Street ghetto in Chicago, same birthplace of Arthur Goldberg, the Supreme Court Justice, and Benny Goodman, and William S. Paley, the founder of CBS, and of his lifelong friend, Barney Ross, the middleweight boxing champion. Ruby grew up in a very violent home. He himself had his nickname Sparky. There were two origins. One was because he had a slight spark which set off this insane, violent temper. The other was he was nicknamed after a kind of a sluggish racehorse in the Barney Google newspaper strip named Sparkplug. And Ruby hated. I don't think he would have minded if people thought he had a quick temper, but the idea that he was compared to this kind of buffoon horse, I think, really ticked him off.
You, in your research, based on the various stories that he tells and based on what you were able to learn about him, did you get any impression that he was part of any sort of broader conspiracy to silence Oswald, to make sure Oswald didn't reveal the truth about why they killed JFK?
You know, I hate to say this, but I don't think we'll ever know. I put in, I did a lot of research and, of course, gone down 1,000 rabbit holes. And in my book, I kind of lay out some of the conspiracy theories without endorsing them. I call myself agnostic on it because, I would say if there was anything, then maybe a dozen guys were assigned to try to kill Oswald, and Ruby got to be the lucky one who was there. He's not a guy you would pick as a hitman. Despite a history of violence and even being, arrested for beating people up, he was never accused of murder, never arrested for murder. Nobody ever even implied that he killed people, although he did, in the years leading up to World War II, with friends, including Ross, violently break up Nazi Bund meetings in Chicago. So he certainly was a violent guy, but he was, because of his temper and because of his erratic personality and his inability to keep a secret, anybody who knew him really well said, well, he was the last guy you would trust to be part of a quote-unquote conspiracy. So I don't, anything's possible, but he seems like maybe a guy you would go to if everybody else was unavailable.
Take us through the tick-tock of what occurred after the John F. Kennedy assassination in Jack Ruby world. What actions did Jack Ruby take in the 48 hours after the assassination of President Kennedy?
Well, of course, it leads the hours and days and months leading up to it. There was a lot of tension in Dallas, a lot of left and right violent argument with the upcoming election. Kennedy had come to Dallas because there was dissension within the Democratic Party, and there was a lot of overt anti-Semitism in Dallas, including a flyer signed by someone named Weissman, and Ruby thought that was intended that if anything terrible happened when Kennedy came to Dallas, it would be blamed on the Jews. And Ruby was very Jewish identified, very concerned with that, and so he was in high dudgeon already, even higher dudgeon than usual. So, of course, so Kennedy is killed, and Ruby goes into action almost as if he was a private eye trying to solve the case. So he's running all over Dallas. He's meeting with people, including alleged mobsters like Joe Campisi, who owned a restaurant that Ruby ate in frequently. But he is running around. He's taking pictures of billboards calling for Earl Warren's impeachment. He's going to the post office to try to see who's writing letters to this group that put out that ad that Weissman signed. He's just in a manic phase. He's seen in 20 different locations. He seems to virtually not be sleeping, and his moods are just all over the map. Highly agitated, enthusiastic, laughing, funny, crying, depressed. Just a roller coaster of a ride. The guy, I mean, so maybe if he fits into a theory that he was maybe a reluctant assassin, maybe that's part of it. But his behavior was just certainly not. If he was a hired hitman, he was doing his best to be seen by people, not to keep out of sight and in the shadows.
Hi, I'm Cyndi Lauper. My scalp was covered with psoriasis, which could lead to psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx treats both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX.
Cosentyx works for me.
Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Feel like you're stuck in career limbo? Clock in, clock out, repeat. No growth, no new opportunities. It's time to break out and break into tech. With CBT Nuggets, you can start building the IT skills that companies are hiring for right now. We make training fast, simple, and practical. From networking to cybersecurity, you'll get short, easy-to-watch videos and hands-on virtual labs so you can build real-world skills without expensive gear or complicated setups. For just $59 a month, you get unlimited access to our full training library. That includes certifications, skill-based learning, and practice exams, a $100 value included free. Learn anytime, anywhere, and get job ready on your terms. Thousands have used CBT Nuggets to launch new careers, and you can too. Right now, CBT Nuggets is offering a free trial. Easily find the training you need and test it out with no commitment. Start your 7-day free trial now at cbtnuggets.com. Don't wait. A better job is just a few clicks away. Feel like you're stuck in career limbo? Clock in, clock out, repeat. No growth, no new opportunities. It's time to break out and break into tech. With CBT Nuggets, you can start building the IT skills that companies are hiring for right now. We make training fast, simple, and practical. From networking to cybersecurity, you'll get short, easy-to-watch videos and hands-on virtual labs so you can build real-world skills without expensive gear or complicated setups. For just $59 a month, you get unlimited access to our full training library. That includes certifications, skill-based learning, and practice exams, a $100 value included free. Learn anytime, anywhere, and get job ready on your terms. Thousands have used CBT Nuggets to launch new careers, and you can too. Right now, CBT Nuggets is offering a free trial. Easily find the training you need and test it out with no commitment. Start your 7-day free trial now at cbtnuggets.com. Don't wait. A better job is just a few clicks away.
What happened at the trial? What were the highlights and lowlights of the trial?
Well, the trial, people always talk about the Chicago 7 or the Chicago 8 trial as being a circus trial. Ruby's trial was filled with reporters. Every famous psychiatrist in America came to testify either for or against him. His defense was Melvin Belli, then the most famous lawyer in America. His family kept hiring and firing lawyers. The prosecutor was Henry Wade, as in Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And everybody in that room was writing a book, which is very interesting because years later a lot of them have become available. And I had the notes from his rabbi, Hillel Silverman, the father of the actor Jonathan Silverman, who visited Ruby pretty much every day for 4 months. So that's something I bring to the table and intercut it with the trial transcript and newspaper and other and interviews with all sorts of people, and the Warren Commission, which, whatever you think of it, is an incredible repository of data and interviews and evidence. I just tried to put it all together. I figured I'm not smart enough to solve the Kennedy assassination. Maybe some other people are. I don't think I am, but I think I can. From my years of telling stories and creating narrative at Marvel Comics and elsewhere, that I can put together a picture of this guy and his world. And he really is, right, everybody knows that picture, but really his story is very neglected.
In terms of, by the way, what sparked your interest of all the things that you could write about? And I know you've written about a lot of different subjects. Why did you choose to write about Jack Ruby?
At first it started around the 50th anniversary, and I was 10 years old when it happened. So I kind of knew. I was aware, but with a child's awareness. And around 12 years ago, I started researching. I thought, well, let me see if there's a graphic novel, because that's my background. Although I've written, a number of books without pictures, but including a biography of Stan Lee. But so it started with that, and I started investigating, and then it just sort of came together. So I was not somebody obsessed with the assassination. I thought it was too big. It was just too much to deal with. But I have since, in the past decade, I've since become obsessed with the assassination and with Ruby, and what it means for the country and the world. In some weird way, the Kennedy assassination almost seems quaint and manageable, even though it's enormous and not quaint at all. But we are so deluged with media and a million different conspiracy theories we hear every day that this almost harkens back to a simpler age. Although I think that's an illusion, I think that's the appeal of it. There's somehow this feeling, if we can just solve the Kennedy assassination, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. In terms of Jack Ruby's demise, obviously he succumbed to cancer very, very quickly, and I do have to break. He believed that he was deliberately infected with cancer, right? I have not. If that's news to me, it wouldn't surprise me. He was pretty paranoid. He had cancer. He had heart disease. He had pneumonia. But he lived for from between the time he murdered Oswald and the time he died, he lived 3 years as a very soft target. Including in the trial. We'd mentioned that during the trial there was a jailbreak, and it's all on YouTube because some prisoners up in the upper floors in the courthouse figured, well, with all the newsreel cameras and all the reporters here, if we stage a break, they wouldn't dare to shoot us, and that's what happened. But Ruby, it's quite possible he may have said that. I don't think he actually believed that, because I don't think he knew he was actually dying. I think he still thought that he was just ill. Understood. Well, Danny, it is a fascinating book. If people want to check it out, it is Jack Ruby, The Many Faces of Oswald's Assassin. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Danny Fingeroth. If you want to comment, you can do so, 646-720-0635.